Welcome to GMI TV, and thank you for joining us today. We are so delighted to have our founder and president of Gospel Ministries International with us today. Uncle David, thank you for coming all the way from South America to join us. I know it's very difficult to get a little bit of your time, so thank you so much for coming. We are interested to know what's been happening in the work in the various countries, so could you please share with us a little bit about what's been happening in these different various countries?
Well, it's a privilege to be here again, Brantley, here on GMI TV. When we used to fly all the time back and forth, we were here regularly, and we could give reports. But since the pandemic started, it's been the protocols in the world and the requirements to go between country borders has been so complicated that we haven't made any international flights for a while. We've been flying locally and doing other flights, but we've been working hard, and we just shifted our attention a little more. Reducing the amount of flights and working harder on local services, and I travel by land or catch a commercial flight if I have to go to another country, like coming up here this time. I came commercially. We have been focusing on developing the medical work. We have about twice as much staff as we used to, and still we have too many patients for the staff that we have down in Bolivia. We've been opening medical services, health fairs in different towns and villages. We are joined by optometrists, ophthalmologists, laboratory specialists, med techs, and others, dentists from around the community too that want to help us. They really like what we do, so they join with us, and we have a pretty big team to go up for about 3 or 4 days to a village, and we just take care of everybody like that. And it's been very, very popular. The consequence is everybody wants us back. The problem is finding time to get back. And many of them donate properties to build a church. They want permanent workers there, come and help us out. We need this. And the sad part is we're short of laborers into the field. So we're praying that God will send forth evangelists and Bible workers, and as well as medical people to do that. We've been during the quarantine, it turned out to be a home run for us on the quarantine because all the churches were closed for 6 months. You know, there's no churches open in the South American division. Up here in the U.S., I think many churches also, they weren't allowed to meet, or just a few people could only come in. So basically, people missed having their services together. So we had been broadcasting the first Sabbath of every month. Now we, boom, took off and did it every week. And it quadrupled the amount of work that we had to do. But it was a home run in that we met a need, and we got used to it, and it's become a regular program now that people translate. We broadcast in English, Spanish, live, and it gets translated into about 10 other languages every week. And so we've been very grateful. The Lord has helped us to be able to meet those spiritual needs, and the people have gotten used to watching it every week. From all over the world, we get feedback every week. One young man told me in Mexico when I was there about 2 or 3 months ago, he said, don't ever give up doing what you're doing. If you do, we won't have anywhere to go. We depend, not that there's nobody else preaching straight truth, but the regular church service. You can get a sermon on YouTube anytime. You can go and you can hear different presenters presenting. But this is a full church service. This is with the songs, with children's, with testimonies, with interviews, with children's programming, and then the 2 sermons, top line present truth sermons, and not politically correct every time, but theologically right on target. And so we're grateful. We've been growing all over the place. Almost every ministry grew throughout the pandemic, almost everything. We realize time and time again that God has a hedge around this ministry. And He does, I'm sure, around all of His ministries. But we have become aware, for example, 2 airplanes that we flew down to Bolivia, the twin Comanche that I normally fly, plus the larger cabin class Cessna 414. We took them down to Bolivia. We have all the paperwork in order. And as soon as they got there, they were accused of drug traffic. We haven't even done any flights yet, and it's already drug. And they were publishing it on all the television networks. These are drug planes. Well, what are the consequences of that? the consequences are they seize the airplanes, the pilots go to prison, and then they work on seizing all the assets related to the pilots. And so there's an antagonism against by people, agents of the wicked one, that would like to close down God's work around the world. And not everybody's that way, just some. So there's a lot of corruption, and so they accuse we found out that through several police officers, they made these charges, and they were publishing it everywhere like a known fact already. And of course, my heart trembled within me because I said the consequences are very severe if that happens. But we prayed and prayed and prayed, and one morning, about 2 weeks later, the fear was gone. It just, God I said, Lord, take it away. I can't work like this. And He took it away, and no more fear. Just simply, it's in God's hands. Those are His airplanes. He'll take care of it. The other pilot who helped me bring the airplanes down, he was pretty fearful, but I prayed with him, and great peace flooded his heart too. And so the other day I was with him. He said, please pray, pray. We need your prayers. I don't know how to pray yet, but please, you pray. I'm learning how. And so God uses these experiences. The police wanted us to, they got a court order to aspirate, to vacuum the airplane and see if there was any drug particles. Well, there wasn't, but they own the labs. It's a known fact they make them come out positive or negative according to their will. So as soon as they ordered that, we tried to get a court order, but no, that's going forward. So then all the police officers came, and I said, by the way, we brought our camera crew. No camera crews are going to be allowed to record this, said the district attorney that was there. I said, hold it a minute. You've been using the TV stations everywhere to broadcast lies. Unproved. You haven't done anything yet to prove that they're guilty, and you've been saying these are all drug planes. If you get to use the TV, we get to. Otherwise, I'm not going to unlock the airplane. I'm not going to be part of this. Okay, they can come in then. So we took our camera crew, and they did it, and just when they were ready, there was about 10 policemen there, both pilots, and our lawyer, Adventist lawyer, and I said, I would like to say a few words. So I asked permission to say a few words. Sure, go ahead. I told them how we've worked for 40 years, what kind of work we do, taking care of the sick people. We're doing flights for free. And so after I told them all of that, I said, so these planes belong to God. They're not personal. They belong to God. So do all of you believe in God? Of course they believe in God. Everybody says they believe in God. They're Catholic, and whether they go to church or not, they believe in God. So they all said, yes, okay, I'm going to have a word of prayer. Dear Lord, please send your holy angels, bring peace, help everything to go smoothly, and most of all, may only the truth be revealed. If anybody has intentions to change the truth to a lie or to invent evidence, discipline them. And that's what happened. They did it. Everything went well. We all signed. They did a very good job vacuuming. They had special filters. They opened up sealed bags. They put the filters in. They did everything correctly. We were witnesses. We helped them move the rugs. They took samples from all over the airplane, and then we locked the airplane up. And as I was locking the airplane up while they were doing the other airplane, I said, Lord, please watch this airplane. Please, this is your plane. And immediately, instantly, the Lord replied and said, it's always been watched. The angels have never left the side of these airplanes. Don't worry. And such peace flooded my heart. And I went to the other one. I was almost happy. We did it. They did it. And within 1 day, they said it'll take 10 days to get the results. But the very next day, the lawyer started calling and saying, $10,000 will make sure that this comes out negative. And they called and called and called. They said, if it comes out positive, we already know that it's going to come out positive. We know that already. But if you pay $10,000, we can make it come out negative. You don't know what fear it gives you. They already know, and they haven't even done the results yet.
Yeah.
So the other pilot, he was so fearful. I said, don't be fearful. No, and I fought it, and prayed, and suddenly God took away the fear, and we just left it. And they kept calling and calling the whole 10 days. No, we're not going to pay. But even other friends called, other pilots. You know, if you don't pay, then you know what's going to happen, the consequences. No, those are God's airplanes. Let God take care of it. Those are His airplanes. Let God deal with it. And they were just surprised. But you don't realize the consequences. No, we're not going to pay. Besides, you become a slave. every time they accuse you, you pay. But if you don't pay, even in this extreme case, then they know that no matter what they do in the future, you're not going to pay. So they leave you alone, see? But it's an expensive fear game. So after God took the fear away, we just waited and waited. And suddenly, the district attorney told us, the police came in trembling with fear. We don't want anything to do with the case. We don't want anything to do with this case. We're withdrawing. Here's the papers. And they left. And he said, what did you do to them? They're so used to corruptness. They're not fearful of anything. But they came in trembling. And we said, the Lord took the fear away from us and put it on them.
They had the fear of God.
Yeah, the fear of God. So that was one thing that happened. And then after the people who were in charge, they couldn't get it that way. They put it into the hands of another district attorney as illegal importation. They came in as contraband. But we went to see the new district attorney. He had orders to seize the planes. And when he met our attorney, they gave each other hugs. They studied law school together 30 years ago. And they were old friends. And he said, this is our airplanes. These are, and he showed him the papers, and the district attorney said, everything is in order. You have not, this is not, they told me it was contraband. This is not contraband. I'm just going to sit on this. When you do what you have to do, get them, start the importation process, I will back you up. So the Lord helped us a second time, and we're in the process of going through that. And they're trying their best to find something, and so far, no loopholes. So anyway, that's advancing, doing more production, broadcasting every weekend, doing more medical work. Our educational work is going forward full blast. And even though we're doing a little less flying, I believe God has plans still for those planes. He's watching over them, and one of these days they'll be flying again. And I've gone over to Brazil 2 or 3 times. I've crossed over into Peru. We have a new wellness center going up there. Our dental work going on at our air base on the river, Amazon River in Brazil. I was able to visit it several times and advance that work. We're getting another donation that will help the different medical projects because it's all been doing all for free, and it takes donations. Even though we're going to be charging symbolic amounts, a bunch of bananas or a few dollars.
Something they can give.
Something they can do, or they can come and help physically cut the lawn or something, or help harvest or do agriculture. Something symbolic to show that they're doing their part. And that's a good philosophy to follow. Any poor person could get the medical care they need, but they do their part.
Yes.
And so we've been busy doing that, and with the broadcast work, dealing with issues, and the issues are increasing.
Sounds like God is giving us the lessons that we need to learn for the times coming up, right? I mean, yes. In the story of the airplane, we need to learn to trust God in every situation, even though it looks bleak and it looks bad. God has a plan. He knows the end from the beginning. What better God could you have than that, right?
It's a tough one on the stomach. When you think you might go to prison. I've been in prison already when I was hijacked in Mexico when I was 25 years old. And it's not a very pleasant thing. And to think at 60-something I'm going to go back in again, it wasn't a very pleasant thing to consider. But the Lord brought the peace, took away the fear. I've known that. I've known for a long time, and I've spoken on it. Fear is an enemy. It doesn't come from God. Yeah. But it needs to be resisted like sin. But it just goes after you. But if you keep resisting and the devil will flee from you, and God will take it away. And so he did take it away. I just noticed I was praying one day with that tight stomach, and suddenly, poof, it's gone. It's like God said, enough. You've harassed him for 2 weeks. Stop it. Boom, put an angel there, the darkness left. And so I just want to encourage those who are wrestling with, could be fear of dying, fear of family loss, fear of financial loss, whatever it is, turn it over to the Lord, and he will deal with it. So we're going forward. We know there's a hedge around us. We feel it every day. We're moving fast. Another thing that God has blessed since then, during these months, another property came up for sale. It's been for sale near our mountain property. Our mountain property is getting filled up with houses and everything. We try to give enough space so that we don't crowd each other. But we don't have any places more that we can build to put staff. And so we said, where are we going to put the wellness center? Where are we going to put the medical staff? We're running out. We have to squeeze everybody together. And then we don't want squeezing everybody together. So we said, what do we do? And then the neighbor kept saying, why don't you buy my property? 200,000 something, you know, where are we going to get that kind of money? So one day she came and said, there was this Adventist lawyer, we don't know who he is, but we didn't like his attitude. He obviously was planning on making money, and he told us he would buy the property and he would give us a house here and a property there, a little bit of cash here. He's going to cut it up and sell it. So many people want to move near Pastor David Gates' project up there in the mountains. They want to be near, so he's going to cut it into tiny pieces and make a lot of money. We said, we don't want a guy like that. So they came back and said to us, why don't you buy it? I said, but we don't have the cash. No, but the same way. Give us a little cash and we can trade property. But we have property with value in town. And they said they would take that, part of it. So we got the amount they needed, cash, we signed a contract, and when we get to the end of this year, we have to finish paying for it. And if we haven't finished paying for it in cash, then they will take property in lieu of it. So we were able to pick up another nice piece of property where we're going to put all the health work.
Wonderful.
And so now we have a separate wellness center going up with housing space for all the doctors and dentists and physical therapists and nurses. So we're happy to separate the two projects and have separate space. But we haven't finished paying for it yet. We're paying. We've already, you know, and we have the property set up to cover it at the end of the year if we have to. Yeah. And then our neighbor came, another neighbor, and said, the neighbors next to you in another nice property, another large property, they're putting it on the market to sell. And I go, they are? And you don't know who's going to buy. Are you going to get Philistines? Are they going to bring tourists in, beer parties, loud music? And you're out there near heaven, out in the thing, all of a sudden.
That would be disastrous.
That would be disastrous. Yeah. I said, Lord, I'm sorry, but I have to move forward again. And so I went to see them, and we reached an agreement. They said, give us a down payment. And I scraped everything I had in aviation, everything I could get out to pay the duty on the airplanes coming in. I cleaned it out, and I gave them a down payment. We signed a contract, so now we're buying the other property. And we have until the end of the year, too. So around December, we're gonna see what God has done. That'll be a good interview at that time to see what God has done. But both properties are being purchased, and they're beautiful properties with water, with pools falling into a little lake. And the patients can go and soak their feet and have walks through the woods. The truth is, we didn't expect it. We're not trying to buy up everything. We just can't afford for somebody else to come in and bring in the world into the middle of the Garden of Eden, you know. So, yeah. So we've been doing that. I've been signing. I don't know how it's going to be resolved. God knows. They want cash. They don't want property. So I got a feeling for December or November, December, we're going to have a really good story to tell here.
So Uncle David, you spend a lot of time in South America. You have, especially when you're not able to travel. So what brings you up here to the USA? What's the purpose?
Well, we used to come every 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, when we used to fly back and forth visiting all the projects. Now it's been more like every 3 months, maybe 4 months. Not very often. And we're glad that you and your wife were able to help us with the administration and on the board to kind of keep things supported up here. That relieves my mind too, and thank you very much. But the reason I came up is because I had a ticket left over. I had to buy a round trip ticket. It was cheaper than a one-way when I went back to Bolivia in April. So I had a free ticket to come up and to take advantage of the trip, to be able to get parts, to deal with administration, sign papers, banking, whatever. And I'm going to make a trip to Mexico tomorrow morning. I fly to Mexico to visit our project there south of Cancun, the Wellness Center, and I'm going to spend about a week there. And then we have a prospective buyer for the property in Bolivia in town. It's not in town, outside of town, but it's a big property, and the prices have gone up so much that it's been hard to, even advertising it, you can't find anybody with cash enough to buy it because it's not a little plot. It's like 60 acres right at the edge of town, which is extremely expensive, where all the industrial growth is happening. So the prices have gone up and the values have gone up. So we've advertised this thing. If the Lord wants to, if not, we'll just stay and keep working. But a gentleman from Mexico came, and he said, I'm putting in television networks around the world. I have a lot of assets in Mexico, and I'm interested in buying the whole thing. and a runway and a media center and a housing and everything. And so he made an offer. The details of the contract didn't quite satisfy the real estate company and others and myself. So we're still hashing out the wording on the contract, but I'm supposed to go to Mexico City after I leave the project in south of Cancun, and I'll go to Mexico City, and we're supposed to sign the contract. Hopefully we can reach an agreement before next week, but I'll be back a week later and pack my bags and head back to Bolivia. So it's a double header. Come up here, deal with GMI needs, go to Mexico, deal with those needs, also the contract for Bolivia, and then come back, pack bags, and head south.
Wow, that sounds like a very, very quick trip. There's an exciting event that's coming up in September, Battles of Faith. So why has that been put together, and what is it about?
Well, Battles of Faith is what the name we gave to evangelistic campaigns. A lot of Adventists come, a lot of non-Adventists come to those, and we've been doing them traditionally in different countries. But it's so hard to travel today. So many restrictions, and of course the injection in some countries that they require. Most of our personnel, I would say 98% of our personnel, have not done that. So we're in good health. We're all in good health. We don't fear those diseases that are going around, but not all our personnel would be able to go to every country. So we decided to do something different this time. We decided, let's do a Battles of Faith in Bolivia, and let's transmit it live on all of our television networks that we can. We have 25 television networks in the world, and some of them are in English, some are in other languages, but at least 10 languages live transmission. I remember Net 95 and Net 90, Net 95, and those up in Andrews University, and it was just a lovely thing to see 40 translators translating live. Wow. You know, and I've been to so many general conference sessions, and I've been translating for them too, on several occasions, live translation, and it's exciting to be participating in a worldwide event. So we decided to do our own worldwide event. Since we have so much visibility, and we have so many networks, and so many connections around the world, let's do live transmission with live translation from the front, Spanish and English. Behind the scenes, German, Romanian, Hungarian, possibly Russian, and Polish. Then we have Danish, and we have Dutch, and you know, and we have French, and there's some I haven't mentioned, but I just can't remember all of them in a row right now. But if we have all of those transmitting live in Portuguese, Brazil is a massive. They've offered me 300 cities to broadcast the programs.
Wow, praise the Lord. 300
cities in Brazil. We can't even. There's not that many cities in Bolivia that I can even think of. I mean, we're broadcasting in all the big cities of Bolivia, and we have 20 stations, but 300? You know, it's a continent. It's like covering the whole United States, and every city. So that's what they're offering us. We don't have the resources yet, but if we sell a property and we get money, we're going to broadcast in all 300 cities. And so it's a massive event, and we realize it's the beginning of a loud cry. The Holy Spirit hasn't been poured out yet in its fullness, but it's going to go through the whole world. So we're planning this with the purpose of filling the whole world as much as we can with the news of Jesus' soon return.
So who are some of the guest speakers that you're bringing in?
Very good question. Our first key guest speaker will be Walter Fite. We're very close. We work together closely, and my dad spends all day listening to him, and when he goes to sleep at night, he forgets to turn it off, and I go to bed and I can hear Walter talking next door. That's if my dad lives next to me. But he's always filled with information. So he's our first guest speaker. We have other guest speakers. We have like the Forerunner.
Christopher Hudson.
Christopher Hudson. Yeah. He's planning on coming. And then we have Little Light Studios.
Oh yes.
Yeah, with Scotty Meyer coming. We also have a couple of physicians. We have Dr. Luis Dulac and his wife Kelly and another couple of physicians coming. We tried to get our director of our German television network to be able to come, Dr. Mueller from Germany, but he's averse to wearing the mask. And so they require that on the airplane. So unless he drives, and he can't drive from Europe to Bolivia, so that's not going to take place. But anyway, everybody, it's a conscience. There's liberty of conscience. I don't have a problem wearing the mask, but other people do. Fine. Yeah. Everybody's conscience is to be respected. So we don't criticize a position. That's what I have against church leaders who try to force their members to do what they want them to do. That's the problem. Respect everybody's conscience. Whether I agree with it or not, respect it. It's your choice. But no, they try to say, well, you can't come to church if you don't do this, and you can't come to church if you don't do that. Okay, so people don't go to church.
So Battles of Faith is going to be broadcast on Red Ed Veneer. We are certainly going to be broadcasting it here on GMI TV. And what are some of the other channels real quick?
We have the Hungarian, the Romanian, the Dutch, the German, the French, the Danish, possibly Russian and Polish, possibly be carried live. We don't have networks in those languages, but they have people that would be interested in doing that and translating it live. And Portuguese, besides Spanish and English from the front.
Wow, it's going to be worldwide. It is. Most of the major languages in the world. So what are the dates of the Battles of Faith? September
29 through October 8. 2 weekends with a whole week in between. One of those nights we're going to have a song fest. It's just going to be all our musicians that come from all around the world to join us with music. We're just going to sit down and enjoy an evening of beautiful music, violins and instrumentals and piano and organ and songs and singing. And so we're just going to enjoy an evening with, of beautiful hymns singing. And we're going to have camp meeting. We're inviting people from all over Bolivia, but I wasn't expecting people from Argentina to come and Peru and others, but they're planning on coming. Even some people from the States want to come and camp out. Wow. So we're going to prepare toilets and washables and showers for everybody. And we have the property. We have enough space. So we hope it's going to be a beautiful camp meeting, beautiful. Oh, during the daytime, all the physicians and our medical staff are going to be taking care of patients throughout the city of Santa Cruz. 2 million people live there, and there's a lot of needy people, and we're going to be doing a health fair with all our staff constantly seeing. There will be a lot of patients, hundreds of patients that we're going to see too during the daytime. Wow,
wonderful. That's going to be a real blessing. After working so many years in the mission field, Uncle David, can you tell us kind of like the methods and your philosophy of how you reach souls for Christ?
Well, we started 30 years ago. We started our work in 1980. We were volunteers, then we got hired by the General Conference, and we worked for 30 years serving the church for different divisions and different areas, and 15 years as department directors for 3 unions, assistant professor in Caribbean Union College and Andrews University in their graduate business program. A lot of experience doing a lot of things. But 30 years ago, we began working in such a way that we started projects for volunteers by faith. And our deal with the Lord was, and now I want to make it clear, it's not a sin to work differently. God uses different forms. But what He did with us is the arrangement that we arranged, and I think it's the permanent one we're going to do throughout. Are you going to work at a job to pay for your food in heaven?
Absolutely not.
No, God's going to provide.
Provides.
So why don't we start now? In other words, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have jobs. It just means that we depend on God for everything now, and nothing will change throughout eternity. Anybody who does something different will have to change their modus operandi. So we decided, let's work the way we're going to work in heaven. Let's just work and let God take care of our needs. And so we started working. Little did we know that this would eventually spread into over 90 countries. Preaching, then projects, television networks, medical work, helicopters, airplanes, all kinds of things. And so we've had the privilege, I don't travel like I used to anymore, but I've had the privilege of being involved in the birth of projects in over 90 countries. And most of them are still working. Some of them have died a death of lack of personnel. Others I've grown. You just plant seeds, and some of it produces more than others. Anyway, God has blessed us with that. And the philosophy was, seize every opportunity that you get to reach people and use every resource. So we seized opportunities everywhere. That's why we've grown so fast, because I saw an opportunity and I seized it. And now it's a big thing. But if you don't seize opportunities, you miss them.
If you see a need, then fill it, meet it.
That's right. Yeah. If you can, if it's within your power, do what you can. Like this property. It was an opportunity. The man said, give me this much, I'll sell it to you. I scraped together that much and I signed the document. But I don't know how to finish paying for it. But it was an opportunity. And I used every resource. I scraped the bottom of the barrel to just get enough here, and just enough to meet the requirement. $10,000 is what we put down. And I had to get a little bit here, and here, but I did it. So we seized opportunities. We grabbed every month that people send money to GMI or to us overseas or wherever it is, in Europe or Australia or in the Caribbean and South America. Every time somebody gives us, we immediately put it into God's work. We can never say we're saving so much. We've invested so much. We have retirement for some. No, nobody in GMI has a retirement accumulated because of GMI.
This reminds me of the parable that Jesus talked about the 5 and the 2 and the 1 talents. Oh. Remember the 5 and the 2? They were using the talents that God gave them immediately, and they doubled them. Whereas the one who had 1, he buried his talent in the dirt.
That's the philosophy. The philosophy is use everything you have every month. So basically we're bankrupt every month. If we get a lot or a little, we try to put it in and pay the bills and advance God's work. And if a lot comes in, which it does every once in a while, then we immediately invest it in moving the work forward. And if enough comes in, enough comes in. And if not enough comes in, we start praying, but it all gets used. And so we're bankrupt every month, and we have been throughout the history of Gospel Ministries International, which is over 20 years ago. That organization was founded in the year 2000. And we were working before that, but we didn't have a nonprofit corporation to overhead, you know. We founded that. Our home church was covering everything. And the little home church in Marion, Illinois, it was receiving all our donations, receiving them, and sending the money to South America. And the conference auditor came to audit the little church. What? Where did you get so much money? Well, we're receiving donations from all over the United States, and we forwarded to South America. You're sending more money overseas than you get for your own budget. I know, but that's because people send it. No, tell them to get their own organization. You know, we can't possibly be involved in world mission in one little tiny church. So that's when we founded Gospel Ministries. The only problem is that little church is barely surviving, has a few old people in it now. Before we were just packed to the gills. And when we give to God's work overseas, the health of the church at home is blessed. Yes. You shut it down, you shut off mission, and the church dies. Yes. And so they're barely surviving now. They have a few people, but I give them a report every time I'm up in Illinois. They want me to give them a mission report. And they said, you know, those were the best years of the church when we were involved in world mission. And hopefully they can get involved again. Yes.
Well, this is great news, Uncle David. I know our time is wrapping up here. Is there anything else that you want to share with us that's happening that we haven't talked about?
Well, I believe with all my heart, Brantley, I believe that God wants us to use every resource we can right now. Personal, institutional, influence, everything we can do now, because the storm is coming. Yep. There is a storm coming, and just like the day before the flood, everything was normal. And the day it started raining, it would never be normal again. That's what's about to happen. And we can say, but it's normal. I can go to the store, or I don't have to wear a mask. My business is going forward. Until the day the storm hits. That's right. One day after the storm, after the good day, the next day after the storm hits, it won't be normal again. And so we are to use every opportunity we can to print books, to distribute books, to support missions, to be involved in missions, to do everything we can and use our influence and our time and our money to move God's work forward while we still can. We know the angels are going to hold the winds. It just gets more difficult and more difficult and more difficult. What we could do yesterday, we can't do so easily today. And tomorrow is going to be more difficult than today. So my advice to to each of you is pray and ask God to show you how to use your time and influence and resources to advance His work. It might be supporting a missionary overseas, it might be you going overseas, or it might be getting on your knees and praying and letting God use you at home. But everybody is to do what they can before the storm hits. Once the storm hits, the night cometh when no man can work. And once the night comes, then we're going to not be able to do some things we could before. But God is still holding the winds. If it was up to the enemy, He would have closed the work down all around the world. The fact that it's semi-normal today, it's amazing because Jesus is coming in a few years.
That's right.
We don't know the day or the hour, but we know we're at the doors. Yep. And He's coming. And so if Jesus is coming, and one day soon we won't be able to do what we can do, let's seize every opportunity and use every resource we can today to do God's work. And I know God has a plan for each of us. And Bradley, that's my wish, my dream, that everybody would get involved. I know there's sides everywhere, and some pull this way, and politically they pull this way and this way. I don't believe in politics.
We should be pulling for God.
Yeah, I'm not politically correct. I care nothing for politics. Just like Jesus said. They said, we will let you go right now, but if we had our choice, we would deal with you. And He said, I don't care anything for your opinions. Basically, I've developed the same attitude. I've tried to. We all have feelings, and we all can get hurt. But overall, we don't make decisions based on what people think. We make decisions on what God has told us to do, and we can tell that He is blessing and protecting. And if all of us did that, we would draw closer together in mission, at least those that are on the mission side. There's people that are asleep and in the world. I have family members also that just are nominal Christians by name. And they go to church and do whatever, but it doesn't appear that they really put their heart and soul into it, and they don't appear to be interested in obeying all that God says. But if we all, those of us that are in mission, and we believe in God's work, why don't we pull together? Let's all be on, we're all on the same side. We're all if a soldier shoots in the same direction as you're shooting, you're on the same army.
That's right.
So many of us won't hang out together because of politics. Forget politics. In heaven, there's not going to be politics, and before the loud cry, there's not going to be no politics. Let's start hanging out together now, working together, supporting, praying for each other. Now, that's the way God wants His people to work.
United.
And that's my last message is, let's learn to work together. Let's support each other's ministries. Let's speak well of each other's ministries if we're on the same team. Because if you're into a different team, a different wrong theology and worldliness, we're not on the same team. But there are a lot of ministries that are on the same team. They love the Lord, they're working, but they're very careful not to step here, not to step there. What will people say if we do? Forget that stuff. It's going to disappear. Eventually, people are going to speak bad of everybody who preaches the straight truth in the end. So let's hang together now. Bradley, that's what my wish is, my prayer, and that's the way I've been living for years, and God is pleased with it, and apparently blessing and protecting, and we're human, we make mistakes, but God knows that, and He corrects us whenever He needs to.
Yes, yes. Yes, well, thank you so much, Uncle David, for giving us the news on the front lines of where the gospel message is being spread throughout the world. And we will certainly pray for your trip coming up tomorrow, heading out to Mexico, and may God bless you on that trip.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for watching, and may God bless you as well.